Hello Lana, welcome to Equity Investment Analysis. My name is Emlyn James Gwiri and we are doing lesson 3. And in this lesson, we will be able to look at what we have not looked at, that is the financial determinants of the growth rates, and we'll look at the sustainable growth rate. As well, we will also look at the 3-stage dividend discount model. So to start off, we look at the 3-stage. DDM. Yeah. Now in the 3-stage DDM, it has got 3 stages. Even to describe how it actually looks in form of dividend growth rates. So dividend growth there. You have the first stage over there. Then it first of all declines to a stable stage right there, and then this growth rate moves into perpetuity like that. So these stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 represents the stages of growth in dividends. So we now will try and demonstrate that using an example. And the example reads as follows. Bima Limited pays a dividend of 1.6 per year. A current price is 118.36. An analyst makes the following estimates. The current required rate of return on equity for Bima is 12%. Dividends will grow at 14% for the next 2 years. For the following 5 years, it grows at 12% and 10.2% thereafter. Based only on the information given, estimate the value of Bima Limited using the 3-stage DDM model. So we'll try and solve this question using a table. So I'll be able to use this side so that we can be able to draw that table. And the table will have 4 columns or 5 columns, where we'll first of all have the time period over there. Then we will move ahead and have a column of the value. Then calculation. There like that. So that we can be able to see how we get each of those values there. Then we'll have the component of D1 or V1, and then we finally have the present values, where we have the DT divided by the required rate of return, present values there. So we have how many time periods? We have up to 7 time periods, because you're saying it is going to grow for 5 years, and then 10, and then we will be able to have a 10.2% thereafter. So we need to have 7 time periods: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 like that. So the value column will be able to see what the value of D1 is. So we'll have D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, and then D7 there. If you'll allow me, I can be able to try and put the inputs over here so that when you're doing the calculation, we'll be able to refer onto this side. So what have we been given? We have been given the dividend. Dividend is equals to 1.6 there. We also have been given the current price of 118. Price 118 point, and we have 118.36 there. Yeah. Then we also have the current required rate of return. R is at what percent? Is 12%. We also have been given the dividends growth rate. So dividend growth rate, rather I can put it in form of G, not D. So G, the first stage, is at what percent? Is 14%. Then G in the second stage, we have how much? We have 12%. And then G in the third stage, we have a stable stage of 10.2%, 10.2% there. Now in the calculation column, we will be able to first of all grow it. We've been told it's going to grow for 2 years. So you have 1.6, which we have the dividends over here. 1.6 into what is the growth rate that is provided in that first stage? It is 14%. 1 plus 0.14, like that. Then we will be able to now grow it. We'll put a square there. This is for the first year. So for the D2, we'll have 1.6 into 1.14 squared. That. Now, since we've been told it is going to grow for 2 stages like that, now for the second stage, now we are looking, here we've already factored in the growth rate at this stage over here like that. So the first stage is there for 2 years. The second stage is going to go now 5 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over here. So that means we will need to factor in the component of growth within this second stage over here. And what is the second growth rate stage? It is 12%. So now we come over here and say 1.6 into 1.14 squared. Now we multiply now by the growth rate of the second stage, 1.12. 1.12 power 1, like that. Now we will grow it for how many stages? For how many periods? For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll do the same over here. 1.6, 1.14 squared, 1.12 squared, 1.6, 1.14 squared, 1.12. Now that is squared, this is cubed. There. 1.6 into 1.14 squared, 1.12 power 4. There, and finally we have 1.6, 1.14 squared, 1.12 power 5, like that. We're saying for 5 periods. That is what we're going to grow it by. That. Now, if you'll allow me, we can be able to extend these column values over here like that, so that we can be able to have period 7. So from period 7 moving forward like that. That is what we're saying we need to include D7 by extension. So we need to have D7 by extension so that we can be able to incorporate within the second stage or within the third stage now here. What happens? Within the third stage, we also need to have a growth rate of 10.2%. So what is going to happen? We will be able to have 1.6 into 1.14 squared, 1.12 power 5, and then coming down over here, multiplied by this growth rate over here, 10.2%. So we're saying 1.102 like that, power 1, because we're saying from there into perpetuity we are going to factor in this growth rate in the third stage over here. So now we can calculate the values of D1 or V1. The values of D1 or D1, like the first case, is 1.6 multiplied by 1.14. So 1.6 times 1.14, we have 1.824. 1.824. And this one we have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared. We have 2.08. Then we move on, calculate D3 there. We have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared multiplied by 1.12. 12. We have 2.33. 2.33 there. Then we have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared, then multiplied by 1.12 squared. We have 2.61 there. Then we have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared, then multiplied by 1.12 power 3. Power 3 there, we have 2.92 there. So you have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared multiplied by 1.12 power 4. 12 power 4 there. So So we have 3.27 there. Then we have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14, 4 squared, multiplied by 1.12 power 5. 1.12 power 5. How much we get? 3.66. 3.66 over here. And now we are saying this final part over here explains this stage. So what happens is that if we get this value and discount it or divide it by R minus G, remember what we were saying, our intent is to get the D1 over R minus G. So we need to first of all also proceed over here and then we divide by R minus G. Our R, we already calculated it as 12%. So we're saying R minus G, which is 0.12 minus the growth rate, which you're saying in the third stage is 10.2, 0.102. So what's the difference between that? So we're saying we will discount this, divide this. So discount divided that by the difference. So we're saying 0.12 minus 0.102. 0.102 there we are getting 0.018 there. So that is what we're going to discount by 0.018 like that. So that you can be able to get this value there, and then we get the present values right there. So we have 1.6 multiplied by 1.14 squared multiplied by 1.12 power 5 multiplied by 1.102 there equals, then we divide by 0.018. We have 224.35. 224. Let's say 35, yes, 35 like that. Now we get the present values. These present values we must discount them against 1 plus 0.12 because it's 1 plus R, like that. So 1 plus R. R we have it over here as 12%, and then we go by the respective years: power 1, power 2, power 3, power 4, and so on and so forth. Like for example, in the first case, what we will do, in the first case, we will be able to get 1.824 discounted against 1 plus 0.12, like that. In the second case, what we will do, we'll get 2.08 discounted against 1 plus 0.12 squared, like that, and so on and so forth, like that. So let's get the answers or the values. 1.8824 divided by 1.12. We get 1.63. 2 decimal places. 2.08 divided by 1.12 squared. 1.66. 2 decimal places. 2.33 divided by 1.12 power 3. 1.66. 2.61 divided by 1.12 power 4. Yes, power 4. 1.66. Then 2.92 divided by 1.12 power 5. 1.66. 3.27 divided by 1.12 power 6. Yes. 1.66 again. Then we have 3.66. 3.66 divided by 1.12 power 7. That we have 1.66. 6 like that. Now we have 224.35 divided by 1.12 power 7. 101.48. that. So what we do to get the value of the firm, we just add all of these values over here. We get the value based on the 3-stage. That. So come on this side. Then, so we have 1.63. Start from the top. 1.63 plus. So let's say 1.66, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So 1.66 times 6, you get 9.96 plus 1.63 plus 101.48. 113.07. So the value is equals to 113.07 there, shillings. So that is the value of the firm based on the 3-stage model. Now we move on to sustainable growth rate, and in the part for sustainable growth rate, we will be able to determine or identify the determinants. Identification of the determinants of sustainable growth rate. So in trying to identify the determinants of sustainable growth rate, we will be able to look at 4 key highlights there. The sustainable growth rate is determined by number 1, or the growth rate is determined by sustainable growth, the dividend growth, or the growth rate in dividends, the retention ratio, and the return on equity. These are the determinants of growth in a company based on the DDM, discounted dividend value, or discounted dividend model. So the sustainable growth rate, we can be able to start off by looking at that on this side. And no longer look at the 3-stage DDM, so we rub it off. Sustainable growth rate. That's the first component. Sustainable growth rate, in terms of the formula, G is given as B times ROE, where B is the dividend or the retention ratio. ROE, return on equity. That is a sustainable growth rate. The next point there is the dividend growth. So the dividend growth rate can be determined from the Gordon growth model, where we are saying value is given as D1 over R minus G. So the dividend growth rate, or the growth rate in dividends, we can be able to rearrange this formula and say V naught R minus V naught G is equals to D1. So since we are trying to make G the subject of the formula, we take this on the other side. We are saying, or rather we take the V naught G on the other side. We have V naught R minus D1 is equals to V naught G there. Coming on this side, that we have V naught R minus D1 is equals to V naught G. I've just repeated what is written down there. We're interested in G, so we divide by V naught, divide by V naught, divide by V naught, divide by V naught. So that and that go, and that and that go. So we have R minus D1 over V naught. is equals to G. So that's how you can be able to get the growth rate like that, dividend growth rate. That. The next component to explain is the retention ratio. Retention ratio. The retention ratio, which you're saying can be gotten from the dividend payout ratio. So it's the dividend payout ratio is given as the dividend per share over the earnings per share. Per share, like that. That is the dividend payout ratio. So dividend payout ratio, putting it in summary, DPS over EPS. So once you get the dividend payout ratio, 1 minus dividend payout ratio gives us the retention ratio. Putting it practically, we are saying that what a firm has paid out in form of dividends, if a firm has got this number of dividends, it has paid out to its equity shareholders, what does it retain? That is what we're saying is the retention ratio. So 1 minus what the dividend or the company has paid out in form of dividends is what we're saying is the retention ratio. The last component is the return on equity. Return on equity. Equity. Yeah. We're saying this is ROE. So the ROE is given as net income over shareholders' equity. That. Using the DuPont formula, we can be able to link all of these 4 components. The first one, we looked at the sustainable growth rate, the dividend growth rate, the retention ratio, and the return on equity. The DuPont formula is given as how we can be able to calculate the growth rate. G is given as net income, or I can put it in summary, then I'll explain the inputs. Net income minus dividends over net income times net income over sales times sales over total assets times total assets over shareholders' equity. Notice one thing. This represents the retention ratio. From the net incomes, we exclude the dividends, the amount that has been paid out to the shareholders. Then what do we retain? This represents the retention ratio over here, this component over here. Net income over sales is what you're saying is the asset, the net income to sales ratio, which has been given over there. This is the asset turnover. This is the component of leverage. This is the profit margin. So with all of these inputs, we can be able to calculate the component of G, or the sustainable growth rate. The sustainable growth rate. Let's look at an example to try and reinforce that DuPont formula there. The example reads as follows. A bicycle manufacturing company has the following ratios for the years 2015 and 2016. The profit margin for 2015 is 11.4, 2016 12.3. You have been given the retention ratio for both years, the asset turnovers, the assets at the end of the year, and the equity at the end of the year. You also have been given the growth rate in sales. Required, the firm's annual sustainable growth rate for the years 2015 and 2016. So we come on this side. Since you already know the DuPont formula that combines all of the formulas towards calculating the sustainable growth rate, we first of all draw what we've been given. So we've been given 2015, 2016. What have we been given? We have been given the profit margin. there. 2015, 11.4. Here you've been given 12.3. The profit margin is in percentages. There. The retention ratio is also in percentage. They are 91.3 and 91.9. We also have the asset turnover. The asset turnover is 1.25 for 2015 and 1.14. We also have the assets at the end of the year. Year end 2436 and 3118. We have the equity at the end of the year. $14.06 and $17.56. That. We also have the growth rate in sales. $17.8. This is of course in percentages, and 16.4. That. Now, using this information here, can we be able to calculate the sustainable growth rate? Yes, we can. We try and identify the inputs. This represents retention ratio. That one. This represents profit margin. This represents asset turnover. This one represents leverage. They are like that. So we can summarize and put it as Pratt. P, profit margin. R, retention ratio. A, asset turnover. And then T, I can put it over here, T is leverage. That. So this can be a useful acronym or mnemonic to use in trying to calculate the sustainable growth rate. So we come back here. Pratt. Do we have the profit margin? Yes, we have that. We don't need to go ahead and calculate the net income and the dividend over net income. We already have, so rather, the profit margin is this one, not this one. That is the retention ratio. So net income over sales, we don't need to calculate that. We already have that. Do we have the retention ratio? Yes, we already have that. So we also don't need to calculate that component there. Do we have the asset turnover? Yes, we have the asset turnover given to us there. So we have that component they are given to us. Do we have the component of leverage? Leverage, we don't have the leverage, but we can be able to have. We have information that can be able to assist us to calculate the leverage, because we know the leverage is given as total assets over shareholders' equity. And there we have the assets here, both years, and we have the equity provided to us there. So the first step is to calculate the unknown. The unknown is the leverage. So we can wrap this. Say that since we already have the rest, we just deal with what we don't have, leverage. So the leverage formula is given over there, total assets over shareholders' equity over shareholders' equity, like that, which you're saying we can do for 2015. For 2015, we have the total assets 2436 divided by the equity 1406. For 2016, we have 1331 18 divided by 1756. How much? How much? 2436 divided by 1406. 1.73. Then we have 31 18 divided by 1756. We have 1.77. 78. Let's put it 1.78. Now coming to our formula, Pratt. We just convert. This is of course in percentages, so we need to convert them into decimals, just similar to the asset turnover and the component of leverage. So we convert them. So 2015 growth rate. We get the profit margin 0.114 multiplied by, we're just going by this formula. So we've started with the profit margin there. The retention ratio, is 0.913. This one is decimals. Remember, these two are in percentages, so these ones you just get them as absolute values. So you multiply by 1.25. And then the component of leverage, so we have the retention ratio, asset turnover. Now the component of leverage we have just computed for 2015, 1.73. There. So we have how much? 0.114 multiplied by 0.913 multiplied by 1.25 multiplied by 1.73. We give 0.225 or 22.5%. That's the growth rate. Then 2016 growth rate. There we have that. We're moving on to this side. We convert them, these two, into decimals. 0.123 multiplied by 0.919 multiplied by we already have the asset turnover 1.14 multiplied by the leverage, which you've computed 1.78. How much? 0.123 multiplied by 0.919 multiplied by 1.14 multiplied by 1.78. We get 22.93. 22.93%, or we're putting it in decimal, 0.2293, like that. And that's it. We are done with discounted dividend model. We hope that you'll join us in our next session, where we will be looking at free cash flow valuation. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to get yourself a copy of our professionally prepared study text and revision partners. Visit our shop along Tom Boyer Street, Pioneer House, 3rd floor, opposite Fire Station.